What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining me for Real Talk NFT, where we talk about all things Web3 and NFT related. I'm your host, Brian. You know my amazing co-host, Joe. And we have a very special guest on here for you. It's the Golden Eel. He's one of the three founders of a hot new project that's launching on Blast. Project's name's New Blast City. Really excited to have him on, and we're going to learn all about the project, learn a little bit about the Blast ecosystem. Golden Eel, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Stoked to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of the way we met was I've been doing a lot of my own due diligence on Blast. I'm pretty excited about Blast. I've been, poking around that ecosystem since day one, and definitely been exploring some NFT projects that are launching on the platform. And I stumbled across New Blast City, started looking into a lot of your posts. You have a lot more information out now. I wasn't able to get into the Discord at first, but now I'm in the Discord, and seems like a lively community, definitely doing some big things. But I guess first off, why don't we start a little bit the origin story, like you and the three co-founders. What made you go forward and start an NFT project?
Yeah, absolutely. So we go pretty far back. Me and the co-founders, DJ Dabs and I. He was one of the first people I met in Web3, really. So I think it was late 2020 or early 2021. We crossed paths in some alpha group. He invited me to this group that he was running. And ever since, we've been working on like kind of some smaller things together, tossing ideas back and forth. We've been building up. We had an alpha group also called Underground, not the Underground, but a much smaller one. So kind of building that up. He's an incredible developer. He was an engineer at Doodles, and prior to that, Google. He's responsible for a lot of those cool experiences. If you took part in the OG application process or the whitelist experience. He kind of had lead on all that stuff, which is pretty cool. Sphincter Bob, I've known even longer, 35 years actually, because he's my dad. And he's been he was a creative director. He's now retired, but he's been drawing his entire life. He was a professional back in his like 20s and 30s. And super creative guy, like from jewelry making to woodworking to illustrations and characters. Like he's just always been a creator. So we knew that we wanted to build something, and we had been kind of going over concepts. Honestly, like we have Miro boards from late 2021 where we were coming up with this like kind of good versus evil faction concept, and like people would be able to decide to mint good or evil, and that would kind of change the website and maybe even change the art of the project itself. So they'd have traits ranging good to evil. So it's not quite what ended up being the final product, which is New Blast City, but we used a lot of that kind of like early stuff to really influence what we're building today.
Super cool. It's pretty amazing that you're doing an NFT project with your pops. And I'm looking at his Twitter right now, his illustrations. And that's one thing that stuck out to me whenever I first stumbled across your project was kind of the art really stuck out to me. So hats off that he's absolutely killing it.
He's the man, honestly. He's 66 years old, and he's one of the biggest degens I know. I got this guy into crypto and NFTs a couple years back. And without even telling me, he ended up minting DeGods, minting Stoned Ape Crew, like all these hot Solana NFTs that I had never even heard of. So he is super immersed in there. He does fantasy football leagues with crypto guys. He's he's super cool.
So starting off, tell me, why'd you pick the blockchain Blast? I know there's been a ton of hype behind it, but what kind of led you down that path?
Yeah, so I've been a Blur maxi since pretty much day one. Like, we use a lot of different protocols in crypto, and I feel like it's rare to just have that immediate reaction, like this is going to be massive. But I remember feeling that the first time that I traded on Blur. So I really got just super involved, like pretty much entirely switched from LooksRare and OpenSea onto Blur. And I've just been following, like, Pac-Man is such an incredible innovator and entrepreneur. Obviously, like, not everything that's come out of it has been a net positive for the space, but you can't really deny the level of innovation. So when they announced a chain that they were going to build, and it comes with some like pretty cool features that as soon as they announced them, I was like, man, that makes just a ton of sense. Like just automatic yield and the ability to like earn protocol fees off of different, gas transactions. It just makes so much sense, further financializing layer twos. So once it was announced, like I knew I wanted to be involved in some capacity. It was when it was announced, it was a pretty down market. So honestly, my first thought wasn't to sort of revive these NFT concepts we'd been working on. But then when I reconnected with DJ Dabs, when he came back into the space, it just made a lot of sense, and it gave us a lot of creative direction as well. Like the Blast, you've probably seen like a lot of the Blast projects are sort of like cyberpunky, futuristic, and I think that's sort of a testament to Blast and Blur's like really strong and crisp branding. So it really gave us a lot of creative direction on what we wanted this world to be. And we're using like a lot of the themes as sort of lore and story building elements. So one example I'd love to give is, this is the story that we're telling is sort of centered around this mysterious and cataclysmic event called the Blast. And this was something that sort of came out of nowhere. It was this brilliant ray of yellow light, and it sort of decimated entire cities in seconds, leaving the old world in ruins. So where we are in our story is, sometime later after that event, humanity is sort of picking up the pieces and rebuilding. But of course, us being humans, it's never quite that simple. So there are all these different factions that are vying for power. And this story is going to be told, partially through the art and the metadata, and partially through some interactive experiences that we're building within our app. But it gets pretty crazy. So they range from like humans to more like cyborgs to all these creatures who have undergone experimentation or have even like, succumbed to effects from the blast itself.
Sounds very interactive that maybe not a lot of older projects have. Can you tell us if it does fit inside a category, what that may be? There's a lot of Web3 games popping off. I don't imagine that you're that. A lot of profile picture collections. What would you say you guys fit in?
Yeah, that's a great question. Definitely not a game, at least not at first. We were doing some soul searching a couple weeks or a month ago, saying, what are we? Are we a community? Are we a project? Are we a vibe or a meme? And we decided, we're ultimately a brand. We want to be like the OGs on Blast. We want to be the place that everyone who comes to Blast ends up staying. So we want to invest a lot in our community. We've hired a great moderation team and a community manager who had worked with some huge projects in the past. We want to make ours the place to be. We want to invest our time and resources in building things that can help build the brand and enrich the IP. So I'm talking, working with animation studios, building sort of like interactive storytelling experiences. The other thing is that I feel like sort of what you mentioned is a lot of like NFTs tell their story very one-dimensionally today. It's kind of just fed to you. And in fact, a lot of NFTs don't really tell their story. So we do want to make it more of an interactive experience where, users are kind of like fed breadcrumbs along so that they get invested into the story. But we also want to build a way that they can actually influence the story. So it kind of goes back to that like good versus evil concept that we were thinking about 2 years ago. What we want to do is sort of faction-based storytelling where users can vote with the factions that they own and actually influence outcomes of the story that we're telling. Happy to dig more into that if you'd like.
Yeah, let's get into it a little bit more. That sounds pretty cool.
Cool. So, we're kind of working on the storyboarding right now, and obviously the app needs to be coded. But let me just give you a very simple example. So one example could be, there's a battle for the Capitol building between the Automata, who are sort of this like machine-based faction that became sentient during the Blast event, and the Terrans, who are sort of our human characters, who are kind of loosely allied under, being like OG humanity. But of course, there are all these warring factions in between. So there's this narrative event, right? And they're battling. The Automata are trying to take over the Capitol building. And then depending, if you own the Terrans or you own the Automata, you can stake on our website and actually dictate the outcome of that story event. So that's one way that it can play out is a basic check of, is it going to be humans staking more, or is it going to be automata? And what we want to accomplish there is really kind of like a flywheel of people like giving a shit, first off, caring enough to go to the app, to rally others, and to like really feel like they're a part of this story. And then we can get more complex once we build that framework. So it could be an event where, it doesn't matter what faction you are. If you're staked, you can actually vote on the outcome of the event. And then whatever happens, that change, you really, really feel it. So maybe the automata, the machines do take over the capital. And then maybe the website changes a little bit. The branding becomes a little more like, chromatic and machine based. And then, that's where the storyline goes. And our Twitter starts to change. So we want to have like real consequences to these events that we're going to be playing out through our app and through our storytelling.
Very cool. Sounds like you guys are really using your imagination to get this rolling. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that's lacking a little bit in NFTs today, and there are obviously some who do a great job. One of my inspirations is this project called "We Are All Going to Die." Was one of my favorites that came out a few years back. But yeah, I think people want to feel like they're a part of the brand and of the story. So if we can give them more ways to really actually be a part of it and feel those consequences, we want to make that happen.
Yeah, I've seen NFTs interact primarily through Discord, with kind of gaming mechanisms. Would this primarily be on your own dApp or website? How are you going to roll that out?
Yeah, so we've been pretty scant with details. Like we did talk about this in our big Blast submission, but this is the first time I spoke about it at length. And yeah, we do want to build our own dApp. So one of the really cool things about Blast is that any fees earned on a protocol, whether it's through the mint or through staking or anything that uses gas, basically, Blast allows you to kind of collect those and then do with those what you will. Mm-hmm. So we have a couple different reward mechanisms in place for our holders. And one of those is going to be kind of like collecting gas transactions and finding a way to get those back to the holders. And that's another place that we could use the faction warfare is like, potentially the winning faction gets the lion's share of the spoils.
Very cool. So talk to me a little bit about the actual NFT collection. I know you mentioned like humans or cyborgs. Is it going to be a 10,000 count collection? What are the numbers looking like?
Yeah, we're still we're planning on making a final announcement on Monday. There's a lot in flight, like just with the fact that we don't even have a launch date for Blast. And I don't think it's ever too smart for teams to announce too far in advance, but we are getting to crunch time. So we're going to make an announcement on Monday. It's going to be, smaller than 10,000 unless something drastic changes. It'll probably be in that sweet spot around like 6 to 8. So look for an announcement there. And yeah, we have, there's hundreds of traits ready. Our artist is drawing just nonstop where he's working on a ton of killer one-of-ones. We want to have, these 5 distinct factions, and within each faction, there's going to be like faction leaders. There's going to be a lot of rarity. So we're super excited about the art. We're really proud of what we've put together so far.
Oh, I saw on your Medium that you posted about, URL and IRL events. Can you give us any insight on? Personally, I love in real life events through NFT communities. I don't know why. I don't know. Call me old school, but has that question been asked? And are you guys planning anything that you can disclose?
No, I do too. And I think there are some kind of easy wins where you can bring in IRL stuff that have been underutilized or underexplored. So I think digital URL experiences are going to be sort of like the core to our brand. That's going to be where we start with this a really kick-ass mint experience, and then on to this like staking and storytelling. But we do think crypto, despite being like NFT communities, despite being global and partially anon, like when people get together in a place like ETH Denver, the vibes are just immaculate, and it makes a humongous difference. Like the Crypto Dick Butts event where we were in like a bathhouse with an opera singer and all kinds of crazy stuff. Like,
wait. There is an event for Crypto Dick Butts. I did not know this.
It was at last year's
Wow.
NFT NYC. And they always, so Meltem Demoires is usually the one who sets that up, and hopefully she has something killer this year. But like, those are the kind of things that once you go through that, like,
Right.
there's no chance I'm ever selling that
Right,
crypto dick
right.
butt. So we are looking for both sort of like IRL opportunities to bond with the community. We think there's a really cool way to do physicals that we don't want to make like too many promises or give too much away at this point. But we do think there's a really easy and smart way to do physicals where you can also have a digital element that we'll be talking about soon. And then we absolutely want to experiment with some smaller kind of like, I think doing some kind of like some stuff that crosses over from URL to IRL, like a scavenger hunt that could have consequences on whoever the actual holder is at a place like ETH Denver or NFT NYC. So we don't have a kind of like a final answer here, but definitely stay tuned to our Twitter, and I think you'll see some cool things.
Yeah, speaking of the crypto dick butts in real life events, I think it was 2 years ago I attended a party at NFT NYC, and I was in and out of a couple of different places, but I remember there was a ton of people dressed in tuxedos. Like it was fun. I mean, it was one of the better parties that we were at that year. But it's a unique group for sure. It's like one of those like rabid, tight communities that, like you said, you go to some of those events, you meet some of those people, and it's real hard to let go of that token in the future.
Yep, one of my favorite communities, honestly. They're close to the top of my Discord pins, and I think when you have such a ridiculous brand, you can do basically whatever you want. Like, sure, an opera in a bathhouse that works.
Yeah, exactly. So I see that one of your co-founders has a Doodle PFP, and quite a few partnerships for like whitelists have come out. It even looks like your artist here, also your father had like a little sketch here of a Doodle meets New Blast City combination. Talk to me about some of the partnerships and collaborations. It looks like you've been pretty busy.
Yeah, that's been a big part of my job, is just getting whitelist spots and OG spots in the hands of people who deserve them, who are in the space. Dabs and I, and to some extent Bob, we're like, we live and breathe this space. We're here every day. So luckily had a good basis to start with, like a lot of really strong alpha groups. I've got NFTs from Yuga and Proof and a bunch of these other communities. So just kind of like, that's where I started, tapping in, saying, hey guys, working on this project, like, check it out. Would love to give you guys some OG role. So that's kind of where we started. And then, it just kind of at some point snowballs and starting to get exposure to all these communities that I was less close with. But we've landed partnerships with like The Gods and Pudgy Alpha and Ape List, and pretty much like every community that we could dream of. So super grateful to all the like CMs who have reached out and hit me up. And it's been really, really cool, like exploring new corners of Web3.
Are you thinking about, collaborating with a lot of the other Blast opportunities? I know there's a ton of like meme coins that are going to probably pop off in that layer too, and a lot of other NFT projects. Are you exploring collaborating with some of these other new projects?
Absolutely, yeah. There's been a lot of outreach inbound and out with other Blast projects. I think, I'm really interested in some of the meme coin stuff, like trying to land allocations for my community. I know people, that's just a really great way to reward people. Everybody has fun getting a shitcoin allocation. And then there are people building like really dope games and stuff that aren't going to be available week one, like some of the NFT projects, but like we absolutely want to form longer term partnerships with. So I've been trying to meet, basically everyone, give everyone the time if they want to chat with me, just being super like available. And then the other NFT projects, I guess we might technically be competitors, but I think it's sort of like, rising tide lifts all boats type deal on Blast. I think If some of our competitors win, then we also win. So I've been in touch with most of the other main NFT projects. We've done a couple whitelist swaps, couple spots here for a couple of yours, and really excited to build together with some of those guys.
Tell us about Blast's. I see you have it written down here. Blast's Big Bang competition. Like, how's the community help with that? Is it just a sellout? Is that like an incubator? That's the first I've heard of it because Blast is pretty new to me.
Yeah, Big Bang is how they're incentivizing developers to join to be ready for Blast mainnet launch. So I don't remember the total prize pool. I feel like it's around $1 million that they're giving across a ton of different categories. So from perps to dexes to any protocol you can think of. NFT/gaming is one of those. They basically had an open invite. If you're launching on Blast, follow these guidelines, and you can get like support from the Blast team, and you'll be judged in a competition, and the winners will win some cash prizes. So that, coupled with the developer airdrop that's been promised, are like two really strong incentives, which is why I think we're going to have probably the biggest day one of any L2 ever. So I'll give you a little update on the status of Big Bang. It's been delayed a couple times, but actually right now they're reviewing all the submissions. So we had to dox ourselves to Blast. We had to give them all kinds of information for the submission. And we also had to film a 3-minute Loom video. So they're reviewing all of those submissions, and I believe on Friday they're going to decide who the winners are in each category.
Yeah, that's the news I saw. It looks like this Friday, which would be tomorrow, right? Yeah. The 23rd is when you're going to get some of the information. But yeah, I like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I'm getting more and more bullish on Blast every single day. I know whenever it was first announced on Blur, I rolled quite a bit of Ethereum into the Blast to kind of lock it up. And that felt, at the time, it felt kind of gross locking up the Ethereum I was putting onto the Blast network there, even though there was like massively good incentives to do it. Not only do you get those spins, you get the Blast points, but you also get like this nice percentage back on your ETH. And, I'd probably spend that ETH pretty fast if it was in my wallet liquid. But I've now now I'm going there like every couple days. I'm spinning, I'm watching my points go up, and now I'm seeing more and more and more people talking about Blast. And I'm just like really excited. And I think you nailed it when you said it's going to probably be the biggest day one launch of any layer 2 around, because it just feels like everybody's talking about it and they're incentivizing developers to come over. And I'm a Pac-Man believer. I think he's an innovator. Blur, like you said somewhere on the podcast where there's been good and bad sides to Blur. I've really enjoyed using Blur, but there's a lot of the farming and everybody kind of bashes that. But at the end of the day, he really seems to have a plan, and he wants to incentivize developers and communities to come over to this layer 2. So it really excites me for the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, I had a question because Blur famously did away with royalties. How does that operate on Blast? I know Blast, you get transaction fees, but how are your views on royalties overall? I know that, to be a successful company that lasts a long time, we need some revenue. Is there plans? I know narratives change a lot where people used to get, funds from treasuries and new second collections. Is that still the plan? Are you looking to go the IP route? I think you mentioned IP kind of like Pudgy Penguins did. I know there's a lot of questions in there. I apologize in advance.
Oh, that's a great one, though. It's actually the exact question that I asked Pac-Man. I was in an AMA with him about a week and a half ago. He came to Metaverse headquarters. It's this alpha group. And that's what I asked him. So he didn't answer whether or not they're, assuming that Blur is the dominant marketplace on Blast. He didn't directly answer whether royalties would be enforced, but I'm going to have to assume as a creator, probably not. Maybe this 0.5% like on ETH. But what he did answer was he wants to find new value accrual mechanisms. So starting with that protocol gas fee reimbursement, he does want to use these kind of like new financial mechanisms to bring money back to creators. So he definitely acknowledges the need for that, right? Because NFTs right now without royalties are a one-time raise event, and it's just really hard to project run rates indefinitely. NFTs right now without royalties are a one-time market, and it's a big challenge. And the consumer market, I don't know exactly what percent, but I do have enough faith in Pac-Man and in the builders on Blast that they're going to find new ways using the kind of unique Blast contracts to find ways to get dollars back.
Excellent. So absolutely pumped for what you're building. I'm definitely going to keep a close eye on the project. I'm going to urge Joe to do everything he can to get on a whitelist as well so we can squad ride this day one NFT Blast project together. Really exciting stuff. And the backstory is great too. You know, you're doing this with your father. You're doing this with one or two of your best friends. So that's really, really great. And it just through this 30 minutes of talking, it just seems like you have a really good grasp on what makes an NFT project successful and how to reward a community. So really great stuff. You want to give a shout out how the audience can find the project and find you on Twitter?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate the kind words. We want to be just, super accessible, super available. We're deeply rooted in this space. So if you want to chat me up, please feel free to do so. I'm the Golden Eel. To follow the project at New Blast City on Twitter, shoot us a DM, follow us for the latest news. As I mentioned, we'll be making our sort of like mint mechanic announcement soon. And join the Discord. It's starting to pop off. It was kind of partially closed for a little while, but now it's fully publicly open. You can get the link at New Blast City on Twitter.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to put all these Twitter links below the video so everyone can get their opportunity to check out this fun project. Golden Eel, appreciate you jumping on, and good luck with the upcoming mint.
Thanks so much, guys. Real pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.